Hello everyone and welcome to our second day of our real-time week, a full week dedicated to real-time data delivery using Flutter. Your response has been amazing. Thank you so much for watching the videos and liking the content. And remember, until Friday, we are going to release one video every single day about real-time data delivery with Flutter. If you want to see a real-time week with another language, please leave it on the comment section down below. And without further ado, let's go to the content of today. Today we'll be delivering our first results to our app. And I created a very basic Flutter app with just one widget, so we won't be focusing on the UX at this point, but on how to retrieve the records. So here I have my iPhone simulator where I'm running the Flutter app. This is a scaffold widget, so I only have the title over there, and we won't be using that as much today because I want to focus on the code. So here I have my app that I created on the last video, and we are going to create our class in here where we are going to write records and then retrieve in real time on the front end. So to create a class here, we're going to click this create a class button. I'm going to call my class person. And for this tutorial, I'm going to create it as public because I don't want to be authenticating every single time in order to retrieve records. But remember, in a real production environment, you have to decide by yourself if you want your records to be protected. In this case, you have to authenticate to retrieve the values, or public, and in this case, you don't have to authenticate to operate a class. So I'll just create a class here. And my person class showed up there when I'm going to add a few properties to it. To do that, you click this add a new column button. I'm going to let the data type as a string and call it name. And then I'm going to add another property that will be a number, and I'm going to call it age. And as you can see, my name as a string is here and my age as a number is also here. And now it's time for us to allow this class to be subscribed for live queries or real-time data delivery. And this is one of the most asked questions that I get all the time. Many people ask me, oh, I'm following your tutorials, but my code is just not working. What is wrong with it? And 99% of the times is this situation. The people forget to allow the class for real-time data delivery or to subscribe through live queries. So if your code is not working when following this tutorial, please check this first because probably this is the reason. So now that I have my person class created, I have to allow it to be retrieved through live queries. We do that by going to App Settings, Server Settings, scrolling down all the way to Server URL and Live Query, click Settings. And if you remember, this is the place where we activated our subdomain and we subscribe to the user class. But now I have to also subscribe to the person class or it won't retrieve any values in real time. So I'm going to click this button and click Save. And now it's time for some coding. So let's go to my Visual Studio. There you go. And as you can see here, I have a very basic UI created with just one scaffold widget where I put the title as real-time week. And this is where we are going to write our code. So inside the class over here, we're going to start by declaring the live query. We do that by typing final live query equals live query. So now I declared a live query object of the live query type as a new live query. But then I have to build the query that will be executed when this live query works. We do that by typing query builder parse object, which is the object that I will be returning, so parse object, and my query will be named query, so you can name yours whatever you want. So query equals query builder parse object. This will be a parse object and then I have to pass in the class that I want to retrieve. I created the person class, so I have to put in here person. And this is good to go. If you want to filter up the results or perhaps sort in ascending or descending order, this is the place to do it. You can append some code in here to filter the results as much as you want, but I don't want to filter any results for today, so every new record will be retrieved from this query. Let me save this, and then it's time for us to create some code to start the live query. And here is the thing, when you subscribe to a live query, it is a asynchronous call, so you have to create an async method. And in order to call an async method is a very good practice to put it into the init state as an override, so it will call it separately from the main code that is here. If I put it here directly, it will complain that async await calls must be in only in async methods. So in order to do that, we are going to add override, and then we are going to create the init state function, which will be called every time the widget is first initialized. So override void init state, and in here we are going to write some code. So super.init state, and then I'm going to call my function. I'm going to call this start live query. So start live query. This function does not exist yet, but I'm going to create it right now. So up in here, I'm going to create a void start live query, which is my function, and I'll declare it as async. So async, and in here I will put my code. And the very first part of it is to subscribe to the class and to the live query that I just created. We do that by typing subscription and then give it a name. I'm going to call it subscription2 equals await, because this is an asynchronous call, and then live query dot client dot subscribe, and we are going to subscribe to this query here. So this query will be executed every time a new event happens in the database. You can have multiple queries executing every single one separately with multiple subscriptions as well. So this is up to you to decide how to design your app, but the flexibility you have with this is humongous. You can do pretty much anything that you can possibly imagine and retrieve the data in real time. But this is something you have to pay some attention to, because when you start writing queries that are way too complex or has too many parameters for it to filter to, your query will take some time to execute on the servers, because it will consume some time and some computational power in order to retrieve the results. So in one hand, you can retrieve the records in real time, but on the other, you are making the results laggy to present themselves because the queries are way too complex. So you have a fine balance that you have to achieve in order to ensure your query executes faster and gives a better user experience to your end user, because everything will respond much faster when everything is efficient. So now that I have my subscription, all I have to do is to write code for the events that I want to subscribe to. And for this moment, I will only focus on the create event that will be triggered every time I create a new record. So we do that by typing subscription.on, and then we have to pass the event that we want to listen for. So live query event dot create, which is the event that I want to listen to, and then value, which is the return. And with that written, we can open the brackets, and then we can do pretty much whatever you want with the record. And in this case, I only want to print it to my terminal. So debug print, I'm going to print object created, and then I'm going to put the money mark and then value. And this is pretty much what I have to do in order to have my live queries listening for new records created. Then I'm going to write Flutter run in my terminal, hit enter. This will compile my application and launch into my simulator. Remember, if you're using the iPhone simulator, it must be running prior to executing Flutter run. And there you go, now it's working. And you can see as I'm in debug mode that my listener was connected to the server. Now it's time for us to write a record and see how it's going to print out to this window. So I won't be using the simulator because I won't showing any widgets showing the data right now, but I'll keep it minimized. And let's go back to our app. So back to our database and the person class. I'm going to reduce this window a little bit so we can see the window behind it. And let's create a new record in here. So I'm going to add a row and I'll write here Nicole as the name and 7 as the age. And look what happens when I click the add button. Immediately my record showed up in the front end. So it's a object created in the class person with this object ID, created at as this value here, updated at as this value, the name as Nicole and the age as 7. So if I want from this point, all I have to do is to show up in a widget and I'm good to go. So this is pretty straightforward as long as you follow these basic concepts. You have to create your classes, you have to allow them to subscribe, and then write pretty simple code in order to retrieve the results, and you're good to go. So if you found this content useful, please click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you can help us grow. Also, share this link with a friend and they can learn something too. If you're already subscribed, thank you for that. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave on the comment section down below. We always answer all the questions. Well, I hope this content was useful to you and hope to see you back on tomorrow's video. See you soon. Bye bye.